Well, I can't.
Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev.
Good day.
Today. I'm just laughing because, things were said before I hit the record button and I'm just like, wait, stop talking. We gotta hit record. How are you, my dear?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Awesome. Doing wonderful. Had a few, maybe not a few, well, a couple proud moments of myself that I'm acknowledging and celebrating. Just the difference between having a not good enough story and living in it and believing it and trying to prove myself compared to doing the process of healing and showing up in public and not living in that story. Huge difference. Huge. And at the same time, witnessing the other people who are living in their not good enough story.
That's
So because I have been, working from home for the past, 4 years. So not really being around that other than when I'm teaching classes. But when you're teaching classes, it's a little different than being out in the public or being in a working environment and being around people, kind of like the same people every day and getting to know them and witnessing and observing and recognizing things. And it's an interesting process. And I really want to share how proud I am of myself in that space. Like, it's like I know I'm not even the same person, because before it was being that person on edge and I got to know everything and I have to again prove myself that I can do whatever it is I was doing and have the knowledge of whatever the people were wanting and needing to have those answers about everything. And I'm just talking about being in the work environment, right? I'm in that full-time job and needing that approval from everybody in the office, and it's just not there. And I'm just like, it's just such a, I don't know, it's like relief and free and peace, calm to be, because in the space that I'm in right now, they're involved in a lot of political stuff. And so there's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of talking about stuff and people and how they're perceiving people, and just having those conversations that a lot of people have that are related to judgment. And I listen and I observe, and of course, making my own mental notes about how am I showing up. And that's really all I can do. It doesn't matter how they're showing up. It's how am I showing up? How much am I being involved in the conversations? How much am I taking in? Because, they're talking about people I don't even know. So that's their perception. That's how they have experienced these people. And I haven't. So it's like, well, I haven't developed that relationship, or I haven't developed that type of perception about somebody. So I'm just neutral, because I'm like, well, okay, well, that's your experience. It should be the same with Bev. I've had great experiences with Bev. We've become close, and somebody else could be like, yeah, I don't like her. Okay, well, that's your experience, because that's how you're perceiving her, and you're perceiving your interaction with her. And so judgment is huge. And I know, so if Bev came to me and said, oh, so and so, right? And I'd be like, yeah. And she'd be like, well, then it's up to me. Do I buy into her experience with them, or do I remain neutral and allow myself to be mindful of the information she brought to me and listen to my own intuition about them? Right? Recognizing that responsibility, because whatever interaction that Bev and this other person would have, I'm just using this as an example, like nothing like this has happened. But just using it as an example, that Bev and that person's encounter, they both have something to learn and grow from. And I don't have Bev's story. I don't have her life history, even though we have similarities. I'm not in her, right? I've not been with her since conception. So it's like I don't know those two people need to learn from each other. And so of course they're going to perceive each other differently than somebody like me who has had a good relationship with them, but Bev's not having a good relationship with them, and then she comes to me. So I hope that makes sense. It's just really being um open to recognizing those kinds of conversations, and also recognizing that it's about them, it's not about you. That what's about you is your own personal growth and expansion and learning. But it's also up to you, is how much are you going to buy into it?
Yeah. And are you neutral as you're hearing the information? Because if you're not neutral, then you're in the space of judgment as well. You're doing the same as the other. So if I'm judging someone for judging someone else, I'm still judging, right? But it's which we started to talk about. I started to talk about because I was like, if I remember it, I'll talk about it. But it's because you brought up judgment. But it's being in a safe place to do that, finding your groups, finding like-minded people, and they may still have a judgment, but it's if they're having a judgment of someone else's judgment, it's still a judgment, and it lies within self. And that's through our own filters. That's through our own experiences. And like you said, we could have grown up together. Honestly, we could have been born at the same time, twins, and had the same parents, same everything, but our experiences would be totally different due to our perception. And I think some of that perception comes from previous lifelines. Like, I think we bring stuff into this lifeline that's from other things, like me being initially being defensive about so many things. Well, maybe I had to be a defender. Maybe that was my role. And maybe I really dove right into it. But then when we do that, we lose balance, and we're not actually coming from the heart space. Because if you're coming from the heart space, there is really nothing to defend ever. And that's my perspective. I was listening to Suzanne Giesemann this morning, and she was talking about, do we need to ask our angels for help? And she said, no. She asked, and that was the information that was given. And it was interesting because how many times we've been told we have to ask. But I would still say ask, because there's a lot of things they will intervene in, but there's things that they won't intervene in, because we're here on our own volition. We're here for our own experiences. We're here for our own growth. And some of those things have to happen for us to have that experience, for us to have that growth, because everything's an opportunity, right? But it's just not being in that space of judgment. But when you have people that are judging around you, it's just to be in that space of love, because they're going to find their way. Because guess what? I used to judge all the time too. And I'm sure I find myself still doing it. I say I'm sure. That's just my way of saying I freaking do it still. Okay.
Do it.
But not on a continuous basis. I'm a little bit more aware of it. I'm still in practice for all these things. And these were my experiences that I've grown up with. So it's like unlearning that stuff. And it's a few nights ago, I was in a space, I think I was in a space of, it was this past week, of money, thinking about money. It was weighing heavy on me. And it's like, it's not about money. It's like, okay, I'm like asking the angels and my guides and stuff for help. And they're like, meditate. This is in the middle of the night. I'm like, of course. Okay. So I'll meditate. So I did. I closed my eyes and I just relaxed there and got into my space. And I started meditating, and I started letting go. And then I hear a song that says, everything's going to be okay. That was the verse I heard. And I was like, cool. So I went even deeper. And then what I had seen was a number 7. It was in red. It was red, not like red. It didn't feel bad. It was good, but it was red, and it was kind of like moving, shifting around, but it was like a block style 3D. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay. And it's like, okay, so what does that mean? Because we know that there's messages with numbers, and we know there's the 7th day, 7th month. There's just so many. I just got the information. It's July, so it was a July. Okay, so now it makes it. So it's just being in that space of not thinking about it like, oh, I got to have the answer. I got to know what this means, but being curious about it. So it's this whole. This has made it exciting for me. And then it's like, even in meditation, with group, all I did this time is set a timer for 3 minutes. You guys figure out how you want to breathe. This is how I like to breathe, but we're going to be quiet for 3 minutes. And it was so hilarious, because in my mind, it flashes in my mind, because I set a timer on my phone. I'm like, oh, I'm going to freak out when the thing goes off and I'm going to throw my phone, you know, like, and it made me chuckle. So here I am, I got my eyes closed, but this is excitement. This is how because I told them I want to meditate. I want to meditate. I don't want to feel like it's a task, and I want to know what the blocks are, what the fears are. And these answers have been coming forward as I've been asking questions, because I've been persecuted in a previous lifetime for doing these type of things. And now it's not to be in that space of fear anymore, and not to be worried about who's looking at me, who's judging me, you know, all this information that's kind of been flooding in the last couple of weeks. And it's been fascinating. So I'm in that space, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're showing me something else. Oh, what if you didn't set your timer? And I like chuckled to I'm like really trying. So I'm struggling to keep this under wraps, right? Because we're in a quiet space right now for 3 minutes. Like, we just wanted to do the 3 minutes, and it's like, I'm about to burst with laughter. And then by the time I'm peeking out, and I'm like, okay, there's like 12 seconds left on it, making sure that that I had said it. Because what if I didn't hit it right or whatever? We would be sitting there for 5 minutes and then be like, what's going on? You know? So it's just
longer than 3 minutes, Bev. What the heck?
Exactly. But it wasn't the experiences. It was to be lighthearted, but it was to raise my vibrational frequency. And it's helping me to understand, what do I want? What do I want? And so after all this, because after the meeting, I was like, it's helping me define, what do I want? What do I want? I want that flow of the Jesus energy to flow through Sanaya, Kuan Yin. I want that wisdom and knowledge and that peace and that love to flow through, because it can feed us all in such a way that we grow, and it's such a ripple. So it's being in that space. It's not wanting it because somebody else is doing it, but it's wanting it because of the peace and love that will flow through. Like, it totally opens up your heart to be in that space. And even still, I'm driving to work, and I'll say Jesus's name 3 times or whatever, because I heard someone else say that, and I've heard threes, always heard threes. And I'll call on Jesus and Kuan Yin and Isis, and, you know, I call on the Archangel Raphael and Michael, gosh, almost every day when I'm working on clients now. But it's just different things we've got so much support around us, so much support. It's just, I find it fascinating, and learning more and more about the physical body, you know, learning more when we get those goosebumps. Now, my goosebumps used to always be on my arms, but now they're in different locations, and I'm starting to notice some similarities, because it's kind of tying pieces together. Like, I know our spine's for support. So if someone's talking to me about leaving their job and I get the goosebumps down my back, don't worry, you're supported. Like, you're being protected and supported. So it's not a big deal. And I wouldn't have any of this information if I wasn't working through all this stuff. And it's been a million pieces that have come together to make just this information. It seems like such a minute way to kind of check in with yourself and see where things are at. But it's like all this information has been slowly building up. Like, we've learned about the spine, the right and left side. I have felt Jim come over, but now it's on my left side, which makes sense, because of mediumship, you kind of use a lot of your tools that you're aware of already. So if I'm recognizing my right side as a dominant side and masculine side, then the men are going to show up or the masculinity is going to show up on my left hand or right hand side. And then feminine is going to show up on my right hand side. They're just going to walk right in. And I also believe that, like, when my guides and my angels and archangels and all that stuff, when they start to come in, that team, a lot of it's coming in on my left hand side, because that's my intuitive, that's your femininity, that's all that stuff on that opposite side. So it's just, there's so many things that are coming together, and we go on this journey and we feel like we're lost and we don't know where we're going and we're not getting anywhere. I'll sit down, and because of you sitting there scribbling in the class, every time I'll just sit here and I do my channel writing that way. So I don't sit and do circles and everything else sometimes, but I'll sit and scribble, and it's like, I'll ask a question in my mind and then I'll just start writing. And it's like the information just starts flowing down. So it's like this whole journey that was not possible before is becoming possible. This meditation that I felt like I had to use someone talking and telling me what to do in my meditation before I drifted off into meditation land, I don't have to do. It's not even necessary. I can do it anyway. And then all I was doing in that 3 minutes at my office was breathing. And then this joy was starting to flow through me, which is so amazing. It's just phenomenal. And then because of Suzanne Giesman, I refer to God as joy. So I'm asking joy to come into my life. I'm saying I am the joy. I am of the joy. The joy is within me. Though this is something I'll repeat like 3 times, but it's just helps me become present, and I'm bringing that information into myself, that flow of that energy into self. So I just kind of put a lot of stuff out there, but this has kind of been this is gradually how it's been happening for me. And it's phenomenal. And of course, when I get lost, when I start feeling the anxiety, I know that that's the time when you're not feeling comfortable, make yourself comfortable. It's like honor self. But we've learned to put ourselves in the back burner so often. So it's a practice to learn to honor self. And I tell people, they'll say, well, gosh, I guess it's not so selfish. No, it's not selfish, because if you don't love you, you can't love anybody else. If you can't nurture you and support you, then you can't really do it for anybody else. You show up and you might be working your ass off, because you have to work your ass off in order to achieve that, if you're coming from that doing perspective. But when you're not, it's just being quiet, receiving the information, then the doing. It's so easy. It's so easy until we get the old thoughts and old patterns activated that don't have to be activated. It's a choice.
Yeah. So this past week, I had a experience. One of the people I work with, she's in her not good enough story and trying to prove herself and wanting the love and acceptance. And she's like a flea. Like, she's so in her head and so all over the place, and trying to remember, like, everything's crammed up here, right, in her head. And I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to be over there, and I'm supposed to be over there at this time. And I'm just like, okay, we're just gonna stop right now and take a breath. I know I got to slow down. No, stop. Take a breath. And I had her do it like 3 times. Take a breath. Slow down. Now, you will be able to handle things better if you are calm. Relax. And interesting, because I know I did it too. I'm not innocent of this. Trying to keep everything in your head. Write it down or put it in your notepad in your phone. Have a checklist. Set reminders in your phone. I gotta have to do this at 2. Okay, so I'm gonna set a reminder at like 1:45. Utilize your tools. Get the stuff out of your head and out here. And so you're not feeling like you're all over the place. It's in that breath, right? I mean, just taking 3 deep breaths, that is a connection to your inner self, your higher self, your calmness and your peace. And I utilize it because I had utilized it sitting here in my office for trying to figure things out, right? I've said it many times. I'm trying to figure something out. So I'll just sit, take a breath, or I walk away. I ask the questions to the angels, God, universe. And I do that at work. If I get to a point where I'm like, not quite understanding this, I need some guidance, I do the same thing, and then it drops in, right? So similar to what you're saying, it's like, give yourself a moment to just quiet down, or at least simmer down. Like, allow that space for yourself. And it's so much easier. It is so worth it. Like, this healing process, the healing journey, the releasing of the stories, the old paradigm is so worth it, because your entire world changes.
It really does. And it's so beneficial, because when you're in a hurry, it seems like everything slows you down, right? I'm driving to my office on Saturday, and I'm just like talking to Joy and driving on, talking to Jesus and Joy, and driving down, getting off the highway. There's nobody at the light, right? There's people at the light, both on the road, but I'm coming off the highway. The light just suddenly turns green. There's no reason for it to turn green, from my perspective, because there's nobody that's been sitting there waiting, but it turns green, and I get to the next light, it's green. I get to go right through, get to the next light, it just turns green. The same thing. There's nobody around, but it just turns green. I'm like, I thank you. Showing that gratitude and that appreciation at that same time as that stuff is happening, and knowing that it's perfect. But then coming around, and maybe I'm slowing down a little bit. Okay, so slow down a little bit. What am I supposed to see while I'm slowing down? It's not oh, this mother in front of me is slowing me down. No, it's like, what could I see right now? Because horrible things happen when we get into those rushes. They can, because we're trying to be slowed down for a reason. I've heard about people driving and then like maybe the person in front of them stopped or slowed down, and then someone behind them goes to pass and they end up hitting somebody because they were allowing someone to cross the road. So I
Yeah.
mean, there's always these things. It's just to what would it have saved you a couple of seconds? That's it. And if that. So
Right.
it's just like recognizing there's always these reasons that shows up, because I saw my journey was, and I didn't change my thought patterns. It was, there was a reason for it. So there was numbers on a license plate. There was a message on the back of a window. There was a bird that I had seen. There's always different things, but it's like, you don't know it unless you have that awareness. You don't know it if you're wrapped up in, I got to hurry up and do this. I've got all this list in my head. I'm not writing it down on a piece of paper because I'm going to rely on my memory to do this. And at the end of the day, it's like, holy crap, I didn't get that all done because I forgot this. And it doesn't have to be that way. So you helped her in a lot of ways. And whoever's listening to this right now, it gives them an opportunity, because it's a choice. You can run around like a chicken with the head cut off, or you can slow down and accomplish so much more. You know that just from your practices. I know that just from my practices. I can have an idea of things that I would like to accomplish. I could have a list of things that I would like to accomplish. But when you set into that space and you relax and you take those 3 breaths, when you meditate for a couple minutes, when you get into that space where you're calm, it's like it just automatically flows. You'll be sitting there and all of a sudden you feel like, I'm going to go sweep right now. Not even a reason why, but it's, well, the reason why is because you had it, maybe had it on the list, but that was the next thing to do. And it's, if you go with that guidance, your day is effortless. And also remembering, I would say, asking for help when you're feeling like you're struggling. Angels, help me remember this right now. If you don't have the opportunity to sit and write it down, guides, help me remember this at the exact right time that I need to remember it, so so I can accomplish these things. But also having an idea of where we're coming from. What are we trying to achieve? What is our goal for that day? Because if our goal is to please everybody else, that's just going to be, you might as well just stay on that treadmill and just keep wearing yourself out, because you're not going to get anywhere. We got to honor ourselves. You know what I mean? When we go out and help uplift others, we uplift ourselves, but we can't do it without uplifting ourselves first. Because I can't do it from the low spot if I'm just grieving and depressed and sad all the time. Now, like, we know that helping others can help start to raise you up into that higher vibrational frequencies, but there's no reason that we have to drop. It's not even necessary. It's not. I was listening to Gordon Smith. I think he's from he's a Scottish medium, a psychic medium. He's a medium. He says everybody's psychic, but not everybody's a medium. So he is a medium, but he's very knowledgeable, and it's this information that he talks about everything, and it's really it deflates a lot of the fear stuff that we've got planted in our minds. He's like, all this years that I've been doing all this, I haven't encountered any evil spirits all these years. But he also vibrates at a higher frequency. So if you're vibrating a higher frequency, you're not going to look at problems as problems. You're going to look at why is this happening, or what is it? Why is this happening for me, or how is this happening for me, or whatever. You know that it's for you, it's not against you. You know that it's supporting you, and your views of it aren't as, you're not so becoming depressed because things aren't working out your way. You're just going with this natural flow. It feels great, and when things arise, you handle it. You, like you said, you stay calm in that space, and you're relaxed, and you can tolerate it no problem. You see that there's a bigger picture here. It's not something that's being a trauma for me. It's something that's helping me. It's helping to guide me. It's helping me to gain experience to help the next person that's going to walk through my door. It's a wonderful journey if we let it be a wonderful journey. If we can allow that flow. And I surrender all the time. I'm constantly reminding myself, and I surrender to joy.
And judging an experience as a problem is a judgment, right?
100%.
So I've been listening to Michael Bernard Beckwith in some of his interviews, that he has a podcast and he's interviewing people. So and I like listening to him because he is one of the people out there that helps me feel grounded, because he stays in that positive light. And it was just a reminder to the conversation I was listening to, is a reminder that our brain our mind is a problem solver. And if we don't give it something to do, it's going to create something for us to do. And then we think our life is chaos. And it was like a reminder of how important, setting the goals and intentions are, because when you're focused on that, the mind is looking for things to help you move towards your goals or help you create your intentions and manifesting. And so I enjoyed listening to them on that part, because it just comes back to, we are creators and we create our own problems because we need something to solve. And I've talked about that I recognize that myself. I think it was a couple of years ago. I'm like, I keep creating problems, but then I solve it. And then that makes me feel good about myself, because now I solved it. But I'm the one that created the damn problem. It's like, what are you doing? Why are we staying in this cycle? Well, it's an understanding of how we operate just as humans, with this mind, with this consciousness, and with the subconsciousness, that if you don't have an understanding of it, you don't know what you don't know. So it took me a while to understand, and I've probably heard it many times over the years, but through experience, because that's how we really grasp things, is through experience. And I had to do it over and over and over. And then being in that space of judgment of, why does my life suck? How come I keep having these problems? How come I can't get ahead? Well, because you keep creating your own problems. And that in itself is a judgment. It's a judgment of my life, and it's a judgment of myself. Whereas it's, well, this is how you operate, and your mind needs something to do. So you're creating something for it to do. And then you feel good about yourself. And when you feel good about yourself, that releases the oxytocin, right? And the good feeling things. Now I feel good about myself. Okay, well, now what? Well, now we got to create another problem so we can solve it. It's just this hamster wheel. So once, now it's like dialing that in. So focusing on my intentions, now I'm focused on other things outside of my business. I have this job, and now this job has a lot of intricate pieces. And so focus on those to problem solve. And it's really not a problem. It's just something that it's not a problem. And I'm trying to, word it in such a way that it's an
You're just solution oriented. You're solution oriented no matter what. You
right.
are.
And I'm more in that space now than ever. Like, okay, well, what's the solution? Everybody else, because everybody else is around me is in that mindset of, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, moments of, we got a problem, we got to take care of this. And they're just on this edge of, it's like that nervousness and their body shaking. And I'm like, okay, let's calm down. Let's take a breath, because there's a solution. We just need to figure out what it is. It's okay. This will work out. It might take a little time, but it's okay. It's going to work out. Let's take a breath, right? And we just always come back to the breath, or I do. And I'm teaching them. Let's take a breath.
Yeah.
Now let's get in solution-oriented mindset. Where are the solutions? Let's work on that. Because I know you lived in this space too. I definitely lived in this space that everything was a problem. And it actually really wasn't.
That we had to take care of. It was we had to take care of. Nobody else could do it. We had to do it.
That's right. Even a thing full of dishes, I need to take care of it, so that then I can be the martyr. I can be the judgment person, right? I can do all the things. So I'll just do the dishes because nobody else can see them. That was a problem that I needed to solve, and at the same time be upset about it.
Yeah. And it's wanting to be wanted, wanting to be seen. There's a lot of the reasons, but it's recognizing that that's our responsibility for ourselves to do for ourselves. It wasn't for someone else to take care of, but that was a learned behavior, and that's okay. Because now we're learning a new behavior. It's not a big deal. It's not something to sit and beat ourselves up about. It's something to flow with. Because we do have all this lovely, amazing energy around us. And when you stop and go in the flow, like that's something that has not been easy for me. And it's been something October hit, and I don't know, the flow
I
changed.
know.
I've got,
Like what?
yeah, but it's good, right? I notice it. It's like we're no longer in retrograde. So we're no longer walking through quicksand. We're not trying to do things when you're not supposed to be doing things, when that's a thoughtful time. That's a time to be going within, not signing contracts, not doing anything, but it's just that space of, being in peace. And it doesn't have to feel heavy or resistance or anything like that. It's just a time. It's just knowing that, like when winter gets here, that's a time for rest. It's a time for slumber, it just is. But to be in that space and then recognizing when you get into that flow, because this is I've been experiencing this month, all of a sudden I'm getting a message from a friend. Hey, you want to go to a sweat lodge? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
This month. Yeah. And then I've got another person. She's like, oh, you want to go stay at in a cave up in Sedona? I'm like, if they'll allow me to do it, because I'm not Native American, I will totally, yes, please.
Yeah.
I'll sleep on the floor. I don't care. I don't need a pillow. I don't need nothing. I don't need no makeup, maybe some water, and that's it. Right. I don't care. I don't care, because that's where I'm at now, but I'm allowing that flow. And then on top of that, I've just, honoring self, I finally set up the appointment to go for acupuncture, and that's going to be done Tuesday. So, I mean, this will be out after that, but I'll already have had that experience, and I've been so looking forward to it, because there's so much information that's been flowing to me. Knowing that I've had, pain in the back of my neck, and one of the people came up to me that I know recently this last week, and she says, I have to share something with you that I had seen. You had reached up for your neck, and she says, I immediately saw you being decapitated. She said, I saw the guillotine come down. And as she's telling me this, I knew that, again, that was suppression for myself, because not being, people being fearful. And in that space, I realized I love all the people that were in that fear, because they were in a fear, because they were guided by something else that was fear. It was not their fault. It was not my fault. It was an experience. So being in that space and having that understanding, it's easier to see things, because I'm looking at, I'm looking through my eyes through experiences that I came for an experience, not to hold on to those things and carry it to another lifeline. But now I'm able to look at those things, and I can process this stuff. It doesn't, and then from my space, it doesn't matter what people believe or don't believe. I know this to be true within myself. There's a knowing that comes with inside of yourself, and it doesn't matter anything outside of you. If someone tries to give you a different perspective, I'm open for it. But I also know I honor myself, because I can feel it within myself. My goosebumps let me know. This knowing within inside of me lets me know. And it's freeing, because I no longer have to carry this stuff. I didn't have to go get a past life regression done for that. I had that experience. But I have also had experiences, even being in Colorado. And I remember I was riding with my mom and my stepdad. We were going to one of her treatments. She was going for radiation or chemo. And I look over, and there's a girl standing on the street, and I immediately saw her in all black. And I know that she practiced witchcraft. I know that that's what she had done. And it's like, it's such an instance. I saw her, what she was wearing, and then all of a sudden it switched immediately right then. And I thought, well, that's interesting. In Colorado, I mean, that's just how I had the experience. So it's like, these are my experiences. I don't need someone else to believe it. This was my experience. So when I share these things, it's just letting people know you're not crazy when the stuff kind of pops up out of the blue, and you're not even, there's zero expectations. They just happen. And it's not that there's something wrong with us. It's letting us know something. And that was like 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And the understanding is still coming along. So there's no time frame that having these expectations to have the solution. It doesn't have to be 9 years, but I wasn't even really pursuing. Why did I see that? I didn't start asking the questions till more lately, and having the understanding about why they were showing up. So this whole journey is so fascinating to me, and it's becoming more and more fascinating. The more that I let go, the more that I try not to control it and just let it be however it's going to be. I'm enjoying my clients more. If I had someone on the calendar that I had on there that it was to cancel, I was going to cancel that person. The person's contacting me and canceling their appointment. It's divine. It really is. We think that we've got to control so many facets of this experience, and we don't. But it's good to know what you want and what you don't want. It really is. And until you know what you want, the experiences you don't want kind of expose themselves to you, so we can identify, what do I really want out of this situation? What do I really want out of this life? What do I want to experience? I want to experience more love and joy. I don't care if if money comes with it or it doesn't come with it. If it does, great. But I also know that I'm being supported.
Yeah.
I'm not in this alone.
And that whole idea, knowing, well, you know what you don't like because you've had a lot of it in your life, most likely,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
a lot of that is like what I was talking about earlier, is the stuff that you're creating to fix, right? It's the problems you're creating to fix, is the don't like stuff. You got into a relationship, well, that relationship became because of your upbringing, because, you know, let's use abuse as an example. You grew up in an abusive household, that equated to love, so you got into an abusive relationship, but you know you don't like it. It was part of your programming, your subconscious mind, that abuse equates to love. So this is how you got into that relationship. Well, you see that relationship and you're like, I don't like this. I don't like to be yelled at. I don't like to be things twisted around and making me look like the bad guy, like I'm the person who's wrong. I don't like the, you know, getting a bruise on my body and then having to come up with some kind of an explanation to people around me as to how it happened, and I have to lie to cover it up. So you know what you don't like. Again, utilizing, and I say again because we've talked about this so many times, utilizing the information about your life. And that's a key word, right? It's information. Information. Your life is full of information, and you're going to utilize that information to utilize your mind, because your mind, again, is a problem solver. Utilize your mind to focus on the things that you want. So if you don't want to be in an abusive relationship, you want to be in a loving relationship, then focus on what a loving relationship looks like. What does a healthy relationship look like? What does it look like to have money in your bank account more than you ever expected? More, just even having more money than what money coming in than what's going out. Focusing on that, because then your mind starts looking for those solutions, starts looking for ways to help that come to fruition. And you are still part of the process because you're going to have to take the steps in that direction. So all of your experiences that you are perceiving or judging as being bad is not. It's a container full of information to help you move in a different direction with anything that you don't like about your life. And we already know we can't change what's happened, but we also don't have to hold on to it and stay in it as a victim, or letting life control you, because you have the opportunity to control your own life. But if we don't know how to do that, we're just going to keep bumping around in life and thinking life sucks. That's not fun.
And then also maybe, yeah, and also kind of sounds like a fixer when we're talking about some of this stuff. So it's also recognizing there's nothing wrong. There's nothing that needs to be fixed from my perspective. It's all experience. It's all experience to help us to ask for something different or to experience something different.
Or
And
fix
I've noticed that,
right? Or fix
or
your,
what?
or think you need
Oh,
to.
exactly. Because when you were talking about that we create problems, well, that we do there that does happen, but I feel like that's would be coming, then you feel like you got to fix something, and there's no reason to create a problem to have to fix it in the first place. But it's to have these experiences because we came into this lifetime with the parents that we had, that maybe they had a certain kind of love for each other or not a love for each other. That's what we got to experience for them. So then it's like we got to go on to other situations. I've also noticed the more that I've slowed down, my mind is not as active. It's almost as if I'm waiting for my heart to kind of let me know what's next. That my mind doesn't feel like it has to do things all the times. But I do notice that, like when the anxiety kind of arises, it's like all this energy when maybe I've been a sponge and absorbed too much, wasn't listening. I could say too much, but that means that there was a problem. There's not a problem. Just like everyone's always saying there's a problem with the earth. No, Earth knows how to balance itself out. Earth, Gaia, Earth, whatever you want to call it, it's still an archangel, whatever, it still can balance itself out naturally because that's our natural state. We just don't allow that natural state until we do allow that natural state. So it's kind of slowing down, recognizing still when we're becoming the fixer, recognizing still when we become the victim. Like I was saying before, I would become a victim for my grandkids, right? And it's like I can't do that anymore. It doesn't feel good. It feels like shit, really. It does when you perceive something a certain way. So again, if I'm perceiving it that way, then I feel like I've got to fix something. Now I just go in love. And when I'm around everybody, I notice how everything's flowing with this new puzzle piece, with this new baby that came in. It just balanced out the whole family that every time I'm around, I see nothing but peace and love amongst all of them. And is it like that all the time? Probably not. Am I experiencing that? Yes. Why? Because I'm focusing on the heart, because we've got all these souls in front of us. And that's all they are. They're just here having this human experience from that perspective, the human experience for the God perspective to have all this experience. So I find it fascinating that we go through this journey and how easy it becomes the more and more I just center in on the heart area. I know that the mind's still there because it processes stuff, but I receive information. It seems like it comes in that way because you get the images that might show up in your third eye area or your inner mind, they would say, or you might hear something in the head area. So it's all in that space, but it's just like this constant flow if we so choose to stay in that space. Just like I was talking about Gordon Smith, that the more you vibrate higher, you're not seeing anything as a problem anymore. You're not seeing evil spirits. You're not seeing anything as like a good or bad, or something that you have to fix. It was an experience, and it's like it's navigation. Oh, well, it looks a little bit, I think it looks nice. I like it over this way. It just feels better this way. And it's just going that way instead of saying, oh, it's all dark and gloomy and gross over there. Well, maybe if you went through dark and gloomy and gross, your perspective on the other side of that is a beautiful tunnel of just vibrant flowers and stuff. You just had to walk, take a couple more steps to get to that space. So it's just all this journey and not labeling it so much, not trying and not having expectations of it, but going with the flow. Like I said, because I'm noticing a huge difference this month. And of course we're in October, right? But it's because they say if we want to start labeling things, that the veil gets thinner. I think that the veil is thick if you're so into your earthbound routines and activities and expectations. But the more that we rise up and the more that we vibe higher, that's not even a true story for us. Just like asking for help. Well, you got to ask for help or they won't help you. Well, we've heard how many angels have stepped in to help someone, because they'll recount their experiences, near-death experiences, all this stuff. They recount it and let us know that they were saved. They didn't ask, but it came in right at that time because there was more for them to do here. There was something else. And to bring forward the stories, those stories are such freedom for ourselves to know that there's something bigger here, that we're not just stuck in the 3D, we don't just have to be in that space of what we see. But again, going back to not labeling things, it's going through and not labeling him as a him or her as a her, not because we're in that space where there's differences. That's an extreme. I'm in a space of there's a soul there, there's energy there, there's something deeper than what I see on the surface, so much deeper. I say deeper, but it's really actually so much bigger. It's not like I have to go deep into that person. It's actually right on the surface. Look in their eyes. We were even talking about that just recently. One of them is a teacher, and she says that she does the talking stick. She passes around in the classroom for the kids, gives each one of them an opportunity to talk, and they look at each other and they're making contact, and some of them won't voice their words or anything like that. But this teacher also said, here in the United States, we're told that we have to be quiet. She says, I grew up in Switzerland. I was not trained that way. We were allowed to talk in the classroom. That's our opportunity. We're growing right now, right? Everyone be quiet, sit and look straight ahead. You're not making eye contact with anybody. You're not having conversations. There's no growth in that, except for expecting them to learn whatever the curriculum is. That's it. But it's so much more than that. And kids weren't meant to be quiet and to sit in a quiet space. They were meant to have conversations and see eye to eye. You were the person that I went to one of your classes. We were up in the Wallapies, and I went to the group stuff. And I had to sit across someone and look in their eyes. And that was so hard at first. And now I do it all the time. Now it's like it's no brainer. But then I hear my kids say, oh gosh, it really freaks me out when people really start staring me in the eyes. I'm like, that's our soul. Why would it freak you out? Because you're supposed to sit still and be quiet in the classroom. I feel like a lot of it has to do that. And a lot of times parents are, same thing. They want you to be alive and okay, but shut the heck up. They don't want to hear it. They want you to be quiet. They want to be in a space of peace. And instead of realizing, hearing those voices, the laughter, even the arguments, it's joy because they're here right now and you get to experience all that. We just miss out on a lot of stuff. We get wrapped up in the mind instead of just feeling these amazing feelings that we can feel when we're high vibing and even when we're low vibing. Because I'm even in that space too. If I start feeling like that, ooh, so if I use the card or something, I'm like, oh, that heavy feeling that can hit you, and it's like, oh, I'll stop for a second and really feel that. Like, is this true? This is just an energy, but I've been there. I mean, I've felt these things, even when I had a ton of money. So, or what it felt like a ton of money. So it's like it's a perspective on all these things, and like I'm just telling you this, or telling everybody this, because it's lighter on the heart. It doesn't feel so heavy, and there's just so much more. I'm listening to these two psychics, and they're like, I don't. My focus is never on money, but money's always flowing. Gordon Smith does not charge for his readings, but spirit always brings him money through other avenues, always. So I find it fascinating. Is he saying don't charge? No, he's just saying he just never had to, because he always had a job, or there was money coming in from somewhere else. So it was just something he did. So I just find it fascinating to have these perspectives from everybody. I love your perspectives on things too. I love it because it's a growth, and it opens up minds for more possibilities for other avenues. It's fun.
Well, and too, so, we look at other people and we think that their life is better, and I want that. And what that is saying is you're judging your life as not good enough. You're judging your life as I don't have enough. And their life looks better. You're not in their life. You don't know. Or do they have a ton of credit card debt because they purchased all that stuff on loan or on credit? Are they working 2, 3, or 4 jobs trying to pay for the stuff that those goodies that they have, those fun thing, quote unquote, fun things that they have? So it's focusing on, and we talk about this every single week. There's not a week that has gone by in the past probably 2 years we haven't said it's focusing on what feels good for you. And to recognize what feels good to you, you absolutely already know what doesn't feel good. So when we talk about judgment, when I'm listening to other people now and they're talking and judging people, I don't, before my story was, ooh, that doesn't feel good. Right. And I might get put that wall up and get that jolt of pulling back. And now I just listen. I'm like, that's interesting that they're having these conversations. It's interesting how offended they are by other people. Isn't that interesting? So, coming into a neutral space about it, and also knowing that I don't have to get involved in the conversation. I don't have to perceive these people the way they're perceiving, because I rely on now, because I am aware of it and I'm in tune to it, my own intuition.
Which is most important anyways. That's
Right.
our guidance for
That's
everything.
right.
I have been friends with so many people after other people have told me how they didn't think. I'm like, well, I just seem to, I guess I don't have an expectation of them. Not saying I don't always, because I have, even talking about my calendar, like even knowing that someone's on the calendar and I wanted to cancel them, but knowing that if I'm in that vibing space, they're going to fall away anyways, because there's no resonance. It's not good or bad. It just doesn't resonate.
And that's the thing, that people will either have an energy shift within themselves, because you're holding that space of, I want to be around people who feel good to me. And I'm not saying I'm above anybody, but I do have a higher vibration now. So I don't resonate or attract the people who are in the same space that I was in, and then staying stuck in it and mulling it over and talking about our problems and just continuously doing that and playing victim to my life. Do I talk about my problems? I do. Because I can, as I'm talking about them, I can hear myself. And then when I hear myself, I'm like, why are we having this conversation? Because it's just creating and amplifying more of it. Well, I want to redirect this conversation. I want to have say different things, think different thoughts, feel different ways about this situation, so it will change. So uh now it's like the people, coming back to what you're talking about, people will either shift in their energy because I mean, I feel like, well, I know, like, I'm a completely different person than I was, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So my energy is very different. And when I bring that into a space, I affect everybody in that space. And that's not an ego thing. That's not a like, oh, good for me. It's the truth because it's energy. So if I'm bringing good vibes, good feeling, energy into a space, that it absolutely is going to affect everybody. And I notice that when my presence is there, knowingly my presence is there, there's less conversations about what doesn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know this could be a few different things. It could be that it's my energy that I'm bringing in. It's people know what I do as a coach. And so they're afraid, and I've already had these conversations. So I'm saying this as definite. They're afraid that I'm judging them for what they're judging. I'm judging them for their conversations, which isn't true. I'm listening and observing and learning. But I mean, it's their point of attraction. It's up to them what they want to talk about and say and do. That's my responsibility is my container. So people will shift in their energy when you are when you're in the presence. They will begin to shift and change. And I would say shift and change in the betterment of themselves. It's not that I'm making them shift or change, or you're making them shift. It's just they're choosing to do that. Or there becomes more distance between you and them, and they start to just fade away in whatever way that looks like. So it amazes me, even as much as I understand energy and how powerful it is, it amazes me to witness it every single time. I'm just like, wow, isn't that cool?
It is though, and that's the fascinating part, because it's a choice. We can sit there. We were talking recently, and that one of my friends, she would say that she'd go in and read the room. Well, when you go in and read your room, you're dipping right into that energy, and so you're not bringing your energy into the space. You're making yourself resonate with whatever's in that room. You're I mean, maybe not making yourself, but you're bringing yourself into that space, that energy vibrational frequency. Now, if it's a high vibrational frequency, freaking let loose and feel it, and then let it raise you up even higher. But it's really, notice the conversations that are going on around you, because it can be an indication where you're at. That can be a gauge. We've talked about kids and animals, how they're such a gauge to let us know where we're at mentally. But a lot of times the conversations that you're in earshot of can be an indication where you're at right now. Maybe it wasn't something you were feeling right that moment, but maybe it was a few moments before that it kind of came forward. And it's like, to be able to witness that and hear that and still love them, because you're loving yourself anyways, even though you've been that same person, because they're you. They're a mirror image of you at some point in your life. You're now having that opportunity. So that's beautiful when we can be in that space to see it that way. Because if you're not in that space, if you're going in to match up with the energy, because I used to sit back all the time too and gauge everything, like watch everything. Where am I going to kind of come into this conversation? Who do I go sit and talk to? Whatever. So I would kind of gauge, or I would sit there and then people would come up to me. But it was, even if they came up to me, they're matched to my energy, whatever they're coming up to me with. So it's recognizing that but it's not a traumatizing thing. It's a fun thing. It can be a totally fun thing. Of course, if you're not in a good mood, then you probably shouldn't have gone in the first place,
Right.
honestly. But that's honoring self, and that's checking in with self. And how do you know? It's by really being aware of yourself. It's so important. I feel like it's so important. It's maybe not important, but it's valuable. It really is valuable. But with that being said, it's valuable both directions. It's valuable even to be in that space and and hear the conversations around you, and you might like chime in. It's like, and then recognize that, and then start to recognize it. And it's okay. It's not like, it's not to punish yourself because you're there, but it's to recognize, oh, I've got some work I can do. Because sometimes our triggers are so minute, it's so minute you don't even hardly see it until it's something that's really loud and in your face. But it doesn't have to be loud and in your face. And maybe that's where Gordon's coming from. When you're really in that space and that vibe, it's things are not being presented to you in the same way they would have been before, because it would have had to get your attention. It doesn't have to get your attention because you're already aware. You're in that space of awareness. So, which is totally different, which makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways, because if you're practicing mediumship, you're really listening to spirit. You're really listening to everything anyways. You can really hear all the stuff that's going on when you're in that space of listening. But if your mind's busy, always trying to, like you said, creating a problem so it has something to fix, keeping it busy, instead of just being like, oh, let's listen. What information can we receive? And then our mind can kick in and like, ooh, we could ask a question. What question should we ask? And so it's asking, it's everything working together in such a peace and grace. Ease there. It's so different from how we've been trained. I feel like in a lot of ways, how we've learned all this time. And it's being okay with it. Even when we do things that we don't really care that we did, it's being okay with it because we made a choice.
Yeah.
Now we can make different choices.
Yeah. And when it comes back to the conversations where, obviously they are judging people, talking about people, I ask questions because now I'm like curious.
You ask questions to yourself, or you ask questions to them? Oh, okay.
To get an understanding, why is it you don't like this person's? And then I hear their story.
Yeah.
Right? It's being curious instead of just diving into and giving into what their experience is and believing what they're saying about the person instead of listening to my own intuition. And I've learned this because there was somebody that before I was getting involved with them, I was told by a couple people, don't do that. You do not want to be involved with that person. But at that time, I was still learning and growing, and I still didn't have full confidence in myself, which means I didn't have full confidence in my own intuition. And at that time, I was like, I'm the person, I just give everybody the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They got to prove themselves to me, type of thing. They got to prove to me that they're a bad, quote unquote, not a good person to be around. Well, that is not listening to my intuition. And when I heard the words from these people, looking back, I felt it. Like I was like, ooh. But my other part of me said, no, give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's do this anyway. You already said you would do it. Just stick with your commitment. You can't back out now. So my ego got involved too. And because I wanted to prove myself, no, I can handle this. I can do this. But my intuition, looking back, my intuition was absolute spot on. Don't do this. But I gave into it anyway and didn't turn out so good. But at the same time, it was great because I learned a lot of stuff. And so no relationship is a waste of time. All of it. We have something to learn from all of it. And so when people are talking about other people, I listen to my intuition. How does my body feel while they're speaking? But I also ask questions about, well, I'm like curious, what is their story? Because their story gives me more information based on my own research and study and programming and understanding of why those two people don't get along, what they could learn from each other from the experience. Right. So it's just gathering. So from my perspective, it's like, I'm just gathering more information because it's helping me understand these relationships even more. Because that information might help me in a coaching with this client over here, somebody completely different, but having a similar situation. Right. So I just ask questions. If you're going to judge somebody, I want to know a little bit more information.
Yeah.
What's going on here? And it's not that I'm getting wrapped up in their drama. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Just
Because it
curious.
helps them to work through things, right? Because a lot of people like to contain all this information inside of themselves. So it's not necessarily, it's not a bad thing to have those conversations and not being, you don't have to fix it. There's nothing to fix. It's just hearing the other person's perspective. And then a lot of times I'll ask myself, and I know you've done this too, is that true? Like even when someone makes a statement, is that true? Also, to be in a space of recognizing, I want to be in a space where when we have when we have conversations with anybody, that there's always goosebumps, because that's truth. That's confirmation of truth for me. So it's like, to be in that space to have truth all the time, that's fascinating. And so to have that more frequently is fascinating to me. It's amazing, because it's constantly, it lights you up. It lights me up.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's great. It's just great. When you start, when you put yourself in a space of learning, and of course, first and foremost is learning about yourself. We're such fascinating beings. We are like, we lifetimes of study of ourselves, right? Lifetimes of study, not just this lifetime, not just a week, and not just a 1 weekend in a retreat. It's lifetimes of study. And just, it's like, be so freaking curious about yourself, because you are such a fascinating being. And then even the scientists, right? I always come back to this. Even the scientists don't understand us completely. They do not know the power. Like, so many people are coming forward with, I mean, I'm going to use Joe Dispenza as an example, through his teachings and his classes and stuff, and the miracles, quote unquote, we call miracles, has happened in these people's bodies, of changing their DNA and recovering from physical problems, discomforts, ailments, not being able to walk, and by the end of, or even the next day of his events, they can walk, and just all these miraculous things that happen. And the scientists and doctors still don't understand us completely. And when things like that happen, and I mean, this could be a whole nother conversation, but they, a lot of them don't want to hear it. They don't want to understand it. They're busy. They got patient after patient after patient to know. They just, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because it's helping. See you next time. Whereas, Joe Dispenza is out there, and other people are out there teaching this stuff and helping people. And it's like, they're helping you understand yourself. They're helping you understand your brain and your body and your heart and your digestive system and your capabilities and your power. They are helping you do this. And there's lots of free content from these people on YouTube, and purchase their books. And it's like, learn about yourself. Stop giving so much attention and energy and time of other people and having these conversations that don't feel good. They don't feel good because you don't understand yourself. So and you may never understand yourself in this lifetime, but be curious and start giving attention to yourself and understanding yourself. Why do you do the things you do? Why do you have your habits? Why do you speak the way you do? Why are you feeling the way you do? Why are you having the thoughts that you have? Why are you do this same routine over and over and over and over and over again? How come you can't change it? Like, everything can change if you want it to change.
True.
And if you
Choice.
want, capital W, capital A, capital N, capital T, if you want to. I think we're amazing. Like,
I think
human
we
body,
are too.
the heart, incredible.
It's more fun than I would never have thought life would have been as fun
Yeah.
when I was younger.
So cool. I mean, we're so cool. Every one of us are so cool.
It's true.
So, any final?
Make a magical week. I say that a lot, but make a magical week. Take some time for yourself, and then take some more.
Yeah. For sure. Thank you, Bev, for being here. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time and energy. I love these conversations. And I know at least one person out there is listening and getting something out of this.
Awesome. I love
That's
it.
what I asked for. At least one.
I mean, I feel like it's for us anyway. So whoever us includes, awesome.
And I was thinking about this morning. I'm like, we did this a week ago, but I feel like it's been longer than that. And I don't know
Yeah.
why. It just feels like it's been more than a week since we've talked. And I'm just like, but it was last Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Think about it.
We experienced a lot of life between then and now.
Because there was a lot packed into this past week. So anyway. All right, my friends, thank you for hanging out with us. Tea Time with Amy and Bev. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can join us in our Facebook page or our Facebook group, Amy and Bev Community group, Amy and Bev on the Facebook page, Amy and Bev Community on YouTube. We also show up on Spreaker, iHeart, Podcasts, Addict, Google Podcasts. So many ways to connect with us. So leave us comments, questions, insights, what resonates, what doesn't resonate. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll be back. It's 11:11 on my clock right now. That's cool.
Nice.
We'll be back.
And thank you. Yep. Thank you very much. I got gas yesterday and it was 71.11. I thought that is freaking awesome. I don't care what the figures are because I like the numbers.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. So
pay attention to those numbers while you're out and about.
that's right. That's right.
All right, friends. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Bye.